Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Joe on this Wealth Wednesday. Hope it's well wherever you are. And weather's fantastic over here where we are in the Washington, D.C. area. And I hope you've had a good week. And, again, let me know who you are, when you're tuning in from. Put your comments. You can put the information in the comment section. We're going to get down to question and answers a bit later on today and so on. So again, my name is Dr. Joe, and today we've got another great session. We're going to talk about how to raise rents without losing tenants, kind of tips, suggestions based on experience, having gone through this for over 30, 35 plus years. It's definitely a right way to do this, and I think there's definitely a wrong way to do it. So again, that's what we're going to cut through, and so on. So a few things, just a little announcement. I'm going to be doing a networking event June the 17th, a couple of weeks from now, and in Washington, D.C., networking event. We haven't got together for a long time. So for those folks in the D.C. area, let me know if you're interested. And I'd definitely like to see you, network with you, probably have some, little light refreshments and so on. If you're interested in participating and being a part of that one, it is invitation only. And so just shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com. And and then we'll kind of take it from there. So again, a networking event at one of my rental properties here in Washington, D.C., June the 17th. It's going to be about between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And for those who know the Washington, D.C. area, it's in the H Street corridor. And so definitely look forward to seeing you. I haven't spoken to I haven't seen a lot of people for a little while. So I just thought it'd be nice just to kind of get together and see what's up. Okay, so how to raise rents and without losing tenants. That's what we're going to cover today. So, as a property owner, obviously, you're in it for different reasons. And it could be for profits. It could be for building wealth. It could be for doing good. And it could be for a host of reasons. So obviously, the rent that you charge, it's critical for whether you're going to be positive cash flow, negative cash flow, or break even. And we've been in kind of inflationary times for the last couple of years since COVID. And a lot of costs have increased. And so your costs have increased. And the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? If your expenses are going up, then, if you want to maintain the same cash flow, then obviously you're going to need to increase the income on the income side of the ledger. And which means that you're going to have to raise the rent. And a lot of people obviously resist that. The fear obviously is the fear of upsetting the tenant, and to the point whereby they just decide to up and leave or give you notice that they're going to leave you. So it's a very, very important topic that we're going to be covering. And so the issue becomes, how do successful landlords deal with this touchy-feely subject, and without really losing good tenants and without damaging the landlord-tenant relationships? How do they do that? And so obviously there's a lot of things to consider, and we're going to go through 6 items today. I'm going to provide you with 6 key tips. 1 is to check the market values. 2 is understand the legal limits. 3, explain why you're raising rent. 4 is give the tenants plenty of notice. 5 is build a better relationship with your tenants. And number 6, offer another option. So they're the 6 things we're going to cover in a bit more detail. And as we go through this live stream, my goal of this live stream is to kind of try to get it all done in about 30 minutes or so. So, and then I'll get the education part in about 15 minutes, and then we'll have about 15 minutes of Q&A. So we'll be doing a Q&A a little bit early. So if you got some questions, please get them together. I'm going to try to wrap this up in about 30 minutes, around 7:30. The goal is to reduce the time of the various live streams from this point forward from 60 minutes down to 30 minutes. I know you're all busy, and so on. So okay, so number one. Let's go to tip number one, which is to check the market rates. Obviously, you're in the laws of supply and demand exist. You're not an island. You're not the only house or property that's available for rent. You're competing with other landlords who have other properties as well. So it's important to know what the market rent is for wherever you are, whether you have a house, an apartment, the location, the neighborhood, all those zip code, all those things come into play. Number of bedrooms come into play in determining the market rate. And so before you even entertain raising the rent, you want to kind of do some due diligence to find out what the going rate is for properties in your neighborhood, given the condition of your property, given the number of bedrooms in your property, given the prices in your neighborhood, your zip code, and so forth, and what other landlords are charging. So the question becomes, how do you find that information out? There's different ways. You can obviously speak to real estate agents. You can speak to property managers. There are several websites which provide sort of market data, comparative data on what other people are charging. Zillow has a pretty good one. Rentometer has a pretty good one. I think Bigger Pockets has a feature whereby you can kind of check out what market rents are going for. So you want to kind of scope your area, do some due diligence, and do some comparison. I call that competitive. When I was at MBA, what do we call it? Competitive analysis. That's the business term for this kind of. You're not the only one with a property, so you want to know what your competition is up to and what your competition is pricing at. So again, there are different websites. You can speak to agents, you can speak to property managers, you can speak to other investors. Maybe you go to RIA meetings, you can speak to kind of folks over there. Now, once you've done the comparisons, then you can then look at what you're charging currently and say, well, okay, rents for similar properties or similar units in this neighborhood go for slightly higher than what I'm charging. In that case, you have an opportunity to maybe increase your rent because you're priced currently a little lower than what the competition is charging. Likewise, if your rent is higher than what the market is, you better be real careful about increasing your rent because you may sort of tick off or upset the tenant, and they'll start looking and they'll find out, well, they can get a better deal somewhere else, and then they'll leave. So it's really important to do your comparative analysis, and you're not in a vacuum, you're not in an island, and then based on what you find, you can then determine whether you need to do a rent increase, or whether, if so, how much, or whether you should keep your rents the same. For my market renters, I try to price mine slightly below market. Again, I'm playing a long game, and my goal is to have my tenant there for a long time. And so if my rents are slightly below market and they start looking around, they realize that they got a pretty good deal where they are. Now, for Section 8 type, if I have Section 8 tenants, that's a little bit more trickier because for the most part, there's a third party, i.e. the housing authority, that you have to, that's part of the mix. So if you want a rent increase, you have to notify the housing authority and then understand how they determine their rents. Many times they publish their rents in websites, and therefore you can sort of see what the payment standards are for where for your property is located, and whether you stand a chance of getting a rent increase. And some housing authorities limit how much you can increase the rent by every year. So some of them, it could be 1%, some of them 2%, some of them 3%, and things like that, if you are below the payment standards for your area. So again, number one is to check market values. And then number two is to understand the legal limits. I mean, there are laws that govern rents, and in many jurisdictions, Some areas have rent control, and some areas you may not even be allowed to increase rents. If you recall, during the COVID time, there were some moratoriums where landlords couldn't increase rents. Even though their expenses went up, they couldn't increase their rents. And if you are in a rent control area and you fall under rent control, Washington, D.C. Has rent control. And if you fall under that, then the government limits how much you can increase the rent by. I know that there's been quite a bit of debate in the Washington, D.C. area. I think there was a hearing yesterday in Washington where the government is trying to limit how much landlords can increase the rent by. And likewise, in Maryland, there are some grumblings whereby some of the county officials, I think, have enacted laws whereby, again, the landlord can only increase their rents by certain percentages each year. So again, you don't have free reign in some of these jurisdictions if your property is located there to do whatever you want. There are some laws that sort of limit, or at least you have to fall within the boundaries of what it is that they're doing. So again, there are legal limits, and you need to understand what those legal limits are where in the jurisdiction where your property is located. So you need to stay in line with the laws, because if you don't, then you could be sanctioned, or worse still, a tenant could sue you, and therefore your rent could be deemed, illegal, which means that you're going to have to reimburse the tenants for, any excess rents that you've charged. So again, be knowledgeable of your local requirements. A rule of thumb is that rents typically can go within what they call CPI, Consumer Price Index, which varies obviously from around 2 to 4%. I know we've been in high inflationary environment for the last year or two, so CPI is probably rate of inflation is 5, 6, 7%. So some places you may be able to increase your rents by that amount. So, but the bottom line is that your lease or your rental agreement also must allow you to be able to increase the rents as well. So you've got to have some verbiage in your rental agreement that allows you to be able to increase the rent, and under what circumstances and what terms, and then you have to comply with whatever the regulations are in the jurisdictions that you're located in. So again, there are some legal requirements that you need to know and understand. Number 3 is to explain to the tenant why you're increasing the rent. Just because you want to increase the rent, it's probably not just enough. I think, there's value in explaining to somebody why the rent is being increased. And I think if you're able to explain, give your side of the story, explain that your costs are going up, then it doesn't sound so bad. You don't sound like a ruthless landlord just trying to milk every dollar out of this poor, unfortunate tenant. I think it's important to be able to communicate and convey to them that you're really doing this as a last resort. It's not really what you want to do, but it's really something that you need to do given the circumstances. And maybe provide some examples. Property taxes are going up, insurance costs are going up, maintenance and repair costs are going up, mortgage interest rates are going up, cost of living expenses are going up. I mean, all these things have increased, and so you no longer can afford to keep the rent where it is, and so unfortunately, you have really no choice but to increase the rent. So if you're able to put all those pieces together, I think a lot of people are understanding. They're reasonable. They understand that your costs are going up, and therefore you have to be able to offset some of those costs by increasing the rent and so on. So explain why you're increasing the rent is also a really important thing. So let's go to so again, we're gonna have a Q&A very shortly. If you got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll be getting to them very shortly. When my goal is to try and wrap up today's Wealth Wednesdays and future Wealth Wednesdays within 30 minutes, 35 minutes or so. because I know everyone's busy, and they may not have the time to go on for 60 minutes. So enter your questions in the chat box, and I will try to get them very, very shortly when we get to the Q&A session. So let's talk about tip number 4. Tip number 4 is give tenants plenty of notice. Depending on where you are, there could be local requirements as to how much notice you have to give a tenant before you can increase their rent. Also, the jurisdiction that you're in requires that you comply with that, and also your lease should say something to that effect. So there are laws, and some jurisdictions it's 30-day notice you need to provide. Some places it's 60 days, and there are even some other jurisdictions where you need to provide a 90-day notice of any rent increases. So you need to understand the timeline that's required from you before you can increase the rent. So understanding that, and then obviously comply with that. And normally the notice has to be in writing. It can't just be verbal. It's got to be either in a written form or a text form or email form or some kind of way whereby it forms a paper trail. So they can't say, or the tenant can't say, I was never notified, or I didn't know anything about it. Okay. So make sure that you provide plenty of notice. And if your rents are due on the 1st, then I would say that if you want to give 30-day notice, then you want to make sure that your notice is given to them the previous by the 1st of the previous month, or even the 30th of the previous month. And obviously, again, if you don't provide that and you jack up the rent for whatever reason and you don't comply with the laws, then the tenant could turn around and file against you. So then, because how do you then it begs the next question, which is how do you notify the tenant? I would say provide a letter in a friendly form, a friendly letter. Explain the circumstances that you're in, increased expenses, and unfortunately you have really no choice but to increase the rent, and let them know that you hope that they continue to rent from you. Let them know that if they have any concerns, that you are available to talk to them and communicate with them. And it's also recommended that you provide some confirmation that they actually received the notice. It could be return receipts, or it could be hand delivered. It could be anyway, you want some kind of confirmation that they actually got the notice. A couple, you can do that phone call beforehand, and then the actual letter afterwards. Okay, so you want to make sure there's no surprises. Number 5 is build a better relationship with your tenants. I think that if you're going to try to increase your rents, you want to make sure that you have a friendly relationship with your tenant, as opposed to an adversarial relationship, a contentious relationship with your tenant. I like to, as you know me, I like to nurture good, positive relationships with my tenants, and therefore, if I have to increase rents, they understand why, and they, they may not be happy about it, but at least they understand my side of the story. And when you contact the tenant for the first time, maybe you want to make sure that you have friendly conversation, ask how they doing, maybe I don't know how the children is doing, how's life, how's the house, general overall, are they pleased with the property, and da 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 da. So kind of just do some small talk to kind of break the ice, and then once you kind of got over that, then you can then go into the touchy subject about the rent is going to be increased. I like to do that. I don't like to communicate with my tenants just because I'm going to increase the rent. I like to communicate with my tenants throughout the entire year, and it's just part of my overall customer service strategy. I'll give you a little quick tip. I developed a questionnaire for all my tenants. We started sending them out recently just to kind of gauge from them how they're doing, how happy they are. Are they pleased with my customer service? Are they pleased with how we make the maintenance and repair? and if there's anything that I can do to make their stay more comfortable. So again, I'm getting some feedback from them, because I want them to know that I value them. And if there's a problem, hopefully we can catch it early. And so that way they don't leave and catch me by surprise. So that's what I try to do in terms of my relationship building with my tenants, because I found that by having good relationships with the tenants, they just tend to stay longer, and so on. I think I'm averaging just over 7 years per tenant on all my properties, because and that's not just an accident. It's not just cross my fingers. It's a strategy. In fact, another thing we're going to do, I think it's time. It's the summer season coming. Schools are wrapping up soon, so we're going to be offering all our tenants free vacations. Free vacations. Again, it's all part of that customer service strategy, and to differentiate me from my competition and let them know that I value them, and hopefully through those outreach, building relationship building, they tend to stay longer, and therefore I reduce my turnover and vacancy costs. So communicate to the tenants, build trust, reduces complaints, and overall it improves the landlord-tenant relationship and the experience, in my opinion. And then number 6 tip is to, if all fails, maybe offer another option. It's not just take it or leave it, pay me now or leave. It doesn't have to be that kind of ultimatum. You can have a conversation, and let them know that, you want to work with them within reason. And maybe you can offer alternatives to a large increase. Maybe you can reduce the increase by having them sign a longer lease. Maybe you can sort of stagger the increases. So lots of different things you can do. If you want to make it easier for the tenant and create some kind of win-win scenario. I know that Mr. Landlord Jeffrey Taylor, he has a little nice strategy whereby he, if he wants, let's just say a 3% rent increases, he'll tell the tenant, hey, I'm going to increase the rent by 5%. And if the tenant objects, they say, well, what do you think is a fair middle ground? And so he wants 3. He's saying he wants 5, and typically the tenant will then bring him down, and maybe they'll agree at 3, which is what he wants in the first place. So the tenant feels like they won, and he gets what he wants anyway. So that's the strategy I think Mr. Landlord Jeffrey Taylor uses. I think I heard that through one of his courses that I attended. So there are different ways whereby you increase the rent. It doesn't have to be an ultimatum, take it or leave it. You can negotiate, you can discuss, and so on. So as you can see, there's an art to increasing the rent, and it's not just a matter of, well, my mortgage is going up, therefore let me stick it to the tenant. If you do that, then you may get some pushback from the tenant, and so on. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that it's almost unavoidable at some point that you're going to increase your rent for various reasons. Your costs are going to go up, and inflation is going to hit you, and so therefore you're going to need to offset that through rent increases. There is a way whereby you can increase the rent without turning off the tenants and losing tenants. There is a way, which I've described through those 6 strategies, whereby you can raise the rent and hopefully not lose the tenants, but keep them, and therefore it becomes a win for you, and it becomes a win for them, and so on. So hopefully that was helpful. And it's now 7:25, and so we're going to go down to Q&A. If you got some questions, please put them in the chat box. Again, we do have a networking event June 17th, Saturday, between 11 and 1. It's at one of my properties here in Washington, D.C. We haven't got together with everybody for a long time, so I want to, give an opportunity to, we can meet at one of my properties, and, we can sort of show you can walk around one of my houses, see what I do, and then we can have some engagement, networking, and talk shop, and talk real estate, and maybe we'll do a Q&A as well during that time. So for those people in the Washington, D.C. area, if you're interested in attending, shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com, joe@joeasamoah.com, and and I'll provide you with the information for that. It is an invitation only, and so please, if you are interested in attending, which is June the 17th, Saturday between 11 and 1 p.m. in Washington, D.C. The property is in the what they call the H Street corridor in Northeast Washington, D.C. That's where we're going to be. If I may have some refreshments as well. So anyway, so again, we're going to go down to Q&A session. So if you got some questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'm going to try to get to as many as I can before we wrap it up for the day. Okay, so Isaiah, let's have a look. What do we got here? Isaiah, hey Isaiah, hope you're doing well. Hope all is well. In sunny Florida. Okay, Boston is in here as well. Welcome, TL. Hope all is well with you. And this Isaiah question is: how much of your property is Section 8 versus not Section 8? The bulk of my portfolio is Section 8. I like that program. I love that program. I think that once you figure it out, it really it's a good program. You can have guaranteed income. I'll speak to one of my tenants today. As part of, again, just reaching out, and she's been with me. I think that tenant was like 13 years now. This tenant has, and we're just checking in, just talking. She's talking about her family. Some of the kids are kind of growing up; they may have to leave, and so on. Some of the concerns that she has about that, because she may get downgraded on the voucher. Just checking in. I spoke to another one of my tenants today as well. We're just checking in again. Just making sure that she had some plumbing issues. We called the home warranty company, and they've assigned a plumbing company to come out on Friday. And so I just notified her about that. Again, just checking in, let her know that I'm on top of it, and I value her and so forth. So I like the Section 8 program because most of the tenants' rent is paid for by the housing authority. And the tenants usually has a small portion, and overall the tenant's portion is relatively small compared to the total rent. So if for whatever reason the tenant has difficulty, I'm still getting the bulk of the rent from the housing authority, and so on. So but for those people who don't like the housing Section 8 program, reconsider your concerns. It's not easy. I'm not going to say it's easy to be successful at it, but I think there are some strategies that you can incorporate. And maybe I did do a Section 8 class. I think they called it Section 8 Playbook. I think it was last year. I may do another one, maybe later on this year or next year, for those people who want to learn more about Section 8 and how to master the Section 8, which is what I call the Section 8 Playbook. We may do a course on that maybe sometime later on this year or next year. So stay tuned. Okay, Isaiah. My goodness, Isaiah, and all the question. I've hit a wall at 5 units. Do you hit a financial wall? If so, how do you overcome it? Yeah, I've got obviously a lot more than 5 units, and all mine are single families as opposed to multi-family. I know that Fannie Mae financing you can get up to 10. Sometimes it's 4 at one institution. So how do you get over that? You understand, you develop relationships with financial institutions, whether they be local banks, portfolio lenders, understand what they're looking for, making sure that you are bankable. Typically, they want to know your credit. They want to know your financial statement in terms of your assets and liabilities. They want to know your debt to income ratios. They want to know, are you a good risk? And what kind of business do you do? And because I do Section 8, they like the fact that it's guaranteed income and so on. So take the time to find local banks where you can develop those relationships, where decisions are made locally. I would definitely suggest you check into that. Make sure you have a good team in terms of people that will help you find deals. Right now, it's very difficult. I'm finding it really difficult to get good deals. It's just very competitive. It's just very low inventory. So I have relationships with wholesalers and real estate agents, obviously with the financial institutions, and then typically for me anyway, I like to buy houses that need work, and so there's a need for contractors to transform the house from its current condition to its ugly condition. And then the back end is to manage the properties. I manage the properties myself. But the question is this: you need to have systems in place. You need to have developed relationships with, you need to have a team. All those pieces need to be in place. Otherwise, it can be very, very overwhelming. I know when I was, starting off, I was working full time, just like you, and so I had a very challenging job where I was doing a lot of travel around the country and sometimes overseas. But still, I was still acquiring properties because I put the time to put the team together and so on. Are there scenarios? Wow, I think Isaiah, you are monopolizing today. Are there ever scenarios where you'd accept a tenant that's porting over from another state, where you're unable to do an in-home visit? I'm leery. It's really, really important that I do an in-home visit. If someone is moving over from another state and I can't do that, then I would say I would decline the applicant, but I would probably dig into it a little bit more deeper, because the home visit is such an important part of my screening process. So if you're unable to do that, then I think you're going to need to have something else to counter that, either a higher security deposit, or maybe you get better references or a cosigner or something that may offset the increased risk that you're undertaking. Okay. Hello, are you hiring? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Am I hiring? No, but you can shoot me an email. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and we can see how I can be of assistance to you on your real estate journey. You can tell me more about the skill sets that you have and what you feel that you can bring to the table. And we're able to barter something whereby I can provide you some opportunities to learn in exchange for some services that you can provide to help grow what I'm doing as well. So check me out. My email address is the same, which is, let's have a look. It is joe@joeasimo.com is where you can shoot me an email. Okay, let's get down to next question. It's just from Lauren Davila. Do you manage other landlords' properties? I would say no. I mean, I've managed other people's properties before. I managed a couple of people. One of them is my brother's, and another real estate investor who I did a rehab for. And rather than selling the house, I sold it to him, and so I'm managing that property. I think my brother's I've been managing for about 18 years, 19 years, and this other investor, I think it's about 8 years now with the same tenant. I helped them find the tenants, and I'm managing that property and the relationships for them. And a testament to the success is the fact that they've been there a long, long time. So generally, I don't manage other people's properties, but if you feel that I can be of assistance to you, Lauren, just again shoot me an email and let's see what we can do. Louis M. Is the due date the first of the month for your tenants? Is there a grace period for all late fees? Yeah, typically most of my leases are the first of the month. And is there a grace period? Typically, it's about 5 days before a late fee is charged. Most of the times, the late fee is about 5% of the rent. So you can charge that. And that's what I do anyway. I'm not sure what other people do, but that's what I do. I do charge a late fee. Whether I enforce it, it could be on a I try to enforce it. But sometimes there are some circumstances where you may waive a late fee if the tenant situation is, is believable, and if it's a one-time thing, and so on. Okay, so supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I'll email you instead. Okay, shoot me an email, and we'll see what we can do. Again, we're gonna wrap it up in a couple of minutes. 7:35. I'm gonna try to keep the future Wealth Wednesdays to around 30 minutes because I know everyone's busy and I don't want to go on and on and on and on. And, and maybe we'll try and do it 30-35 minutes. Isaiah again. So if you got another question, maybe I got time for one more question, and I'll wrap it up. Are there any portfolio lenders you're willing to share that would be open to lending in Florida? Sorry for all the questions. I'm taking advantage of the time we have with you. Ha 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 ha. Yes, Florida. There are some portfolio lenders. There are some lenders, that are nation. Obviously, I don't own anything in Florida, but It's my understanding that there are some portfolio lenders. The best thing to do, Isaiah, is to go to a local RIA, wherever you are. That's a real estate investment association, wherever you are in Tampa or wherever. And there's probably some investors there, real estate investors, that are very knowledgeable in your local market, and they'll be able to tell you which lenders are that they use, or the ones that are preferred lenders. And you may want to do that. You can go to Bigger Pockets and shoot an email, or shoot a request in the forums. That may be a good place to go. And so there are local, and also you can do a Google search of portfolio lenders in your area, and therefore you can sort of reach out to them that way, and hopefully you'll be able to come across somebody that can help you. So, my friends, it is now 7:37. It's just slightly over, but hopefully today was helpful. And so hopefully today's session was interesting. Again, if you want to reach out to me, you can shoot me an email at joe@joeasamoah.com. I'm not the greatest in terms of responding to emails, but I'll do the best that I can to do. And again, we do have a networking event on June the 17th in Washington, D.C. between 11 and 1 p.m. So if you're in the area, please let me know. And definitely would like to, connect with you and see you. And if I can be of assistance, please let me know. So again, joe@joeasamoah.com is where you can reach me. And with that said and done, my friends, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Take care. Bye for now.